Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to episode 2 of Northwest Newsweek 2018 Year in Review. It was a tragic start for the month of May for Scarborough residents after an incident in Toronto claimed the life of the town's fire chief. Austin Delaney reports.
63-year-old Scarborough Fire Chief Pat Bourgouin was killed while crossing the road at the intersection of Atwell Drive and Dixon Road around 1 this morning. At the time, police say it was dark. The lights were off because of a power interruption, a fallout from the windstorm yesterday. The Ontario Association of Firefighters tweeted, "We wish to extend condolences to family, friends, and colleagues of Chief Patrick Bourgouin of Scarborough Fire, who sadly and suddenly passed away last night. This is an unimaginable tragedy. Losing one of our own under any circumstances is a devastating loss to the fire community." The Northern Ontario Fire Chief had been attending the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs convention at the nearby International Centre.
Smaller rural departments, when they're coming that far from Thunder Bay down to be at a conference like this to increase their education, it shows you their dedication and their commitment to the community.
The Township of Scarborough issued a statement that reads in part, "The entire Township of Scarborough is in mourning, and our deepest condolences go out to his wife Debbie, his children Dan and Lisa, and 3 grandchildren. Pat was an amazing man and passionately dedicated to his family. His work as a dedicated volunteer firefighter for 34 years and as Scarborough's chief since 2009.
The whole community is hurting. You know, it's when we lose one of our own, it's tragic when you hear about it, but when it happens at your own conference, it hurts a little more.
Bourgouin was rushed to hospital but died from massive head and chest injuries. Austin Delaney, CTV News.
In late May, a De Norwick resident's video was the center of a social media frenzy. Ed Trist captured an unlikely encounter between 2 lynx squaring off. The video caught the attention of the world and amassed more than 12 million views. Carmen Wong has the story.
Ed Trist was planning to catch a few minnows for fishing, but instead caught a rare sighting of 2 lynx shrieking at each other. He was with his girlfriend and daughter at the time when they came across a cat near Avery Lake, which is 30 minutes east of Dryden. They stopped and watched the lynx for about 10 minutes. Trist says he decided to stop and record the encounter.
It was just kind of a really cool experience, and I wanted to share it, and basically to my friends. And then it just, like within an hour, there was 10,000 views, as soon as I posted it.
Trist and his girlfriend posted the video on their respective Facebook accounts, and the amount of responses they've received have been overwhelming. The video has been circulated across all social media platforms. Trist says he has been contacted by people all over the world who want to buy the rights to the video.
We have, over 9 million views. I have over 100,000 shares. It's just absolutely crazy. Different news media contact me, people wanting to buy the rights to the video. It's absolutely nuts. So my phone has not stopped. I've had 2,000, at least maybe 3,000 friend requests.
And with all the attention his video has received, people have been asking about the outcome of the lynx's argument. Trist says he's no lynx expert, but thinks that the cats were 2 males competing for a female. He also says he hopes the cats made up after the fight.
Lots of people are asking me online what happened. I really don't know what happened. Maybe they kissed and made up. I don't know.
After they finished recording, the trio drove right past the cats who remained focused on one another. Trist says he has not seen the lynx since. Carmen Wong, TBT News.
May also saw the loss of a landmark in the Greenstone area. On the evening of May 24th, a fire tore through the historic Catholic Church of the Enfant Jesus in Long Lac. The church was situated on a scenic point of land on Long Lake, just off Highway 11. It was built in 1949 after the original church burnt down the previous year. The Jesuit Parish served the town of Long Lac and the nearby First Nation communities. The church was closed in May 1997 and had been abandoned since then. It was scheduled to be demolished in September of 2008, but it was saved at the last minute by the nearby Long Lake 58 First Nation, which was attempting to acquire funding to restore the church. The Greenstone Fire Department was on scene, but fire crews were unable to save the structure. On June 5th, the town of Red Lake was in mourning after officials in the community confirmed the passing of 69-year-old Mayor Phil Vinet that morning after a battle with cancer. Vinet was the 2nd mayor of the community to be elected and was in the midst of his 3rd term as mayor. Taking place throughout the months of May and June was the roller coaster that was the 2018 provincial election. It saw some familiar faces return to the public life along with some newcomers. Corey Nordstrom has this breakdown of the wins and losses from across the Northwest.
It was a night of new faces, close calls, and hard losses across the region on June 7th as voters decided who would represent them in Queen's Park. Starting in Kenora Rainy River, where the stronghold of NDP support was unable to withstand the clout of former federal cabinet minister Greg Rickford. He says while it is great to be back, he wants to get down to business on several riding-specific projects, such as the twinning of the highway between Kenora and the Manitoba border.
I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and I never envisioned it, but to come in as the provincial member and get this job done. We handed it over to the provinces because that's what you do when you make significant contributions to things that the provinces are supposed to take care of and build.
It was neck and neck at times for Rickford and his closest competitor, the NDP's Glenn Archer, but Rickford managed to pull ahead, defeating Archer by a solid 2,000 votes. Meanwhile, it was a hard loss for Thunder Bay Atikokan's Liberal candidate Bill Morrow as he lost his seat to NDP newcomer Judith Monteith Farrell by a mere 81 votes.
As I said in my speech, I congratulate Judith and the NDP. We've had other battles in the past. Today was their turn. I wish her well. It's not easy work.
It was too close to call at that point, and so really you had to wait until the end to see what was going to happen. So I tried to stay calm. It feels amazing. I'm really looking forward to doing the work of an NPP and getting in the trenches and taking on Doug Ford.
In Thunder Bay Superior North, longtime Liberal MPP Michael Gravel held his seat, defeating NDP challenger Lise Vaugeois. Despite winning the battle, the war was lost as the PCs won a majority government, sending Gravel to the opposition benches, where he says now more than ever it's important to stand up for the people in the Northwest.
This is a very special riding made up of a number of communities, obviously outside the city of Thunder Bay, that I want to represent as strongly as possible. That seems even more important to me now that we have a progressive conservative majority government. All the more reason why, as a member of the opposition, I'll need to make a strong case for our riding.
And in the newly established riding of Kuwait-Noong, voters chose the NDP's Sol Mamakwa to represent them. He defeated PC and Liberal challengers Clifford Bull and Doug Lawrence respectively, making history as the riding's first MPP. Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
In late June, Rickford was selected to be a cabinet minister within the Ford government. He would play double duty as Minister for Indigenous Affairs and Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines. Stay tuned. When Northwest Newsweek Year in Review continues, we travel up to the Lac des Îles mine after a blockade by members of the Gill First Nation temporarily shut down the facility. A week-long barricade put on by chief and residents of Gull Bay First Nation was lifted on the entrance of the North American Palladium's Lac des Îles mine. After the 5-day traditional gathering, a signing between the First Nation and the company put the two parties on a path to further cooperation. Adam Riley was at the signing and files this report.
A deal has been reached between the chief and council of the Gull Bay First Nation and North American Palladium, after access to the mine 90 kilometers north of Thunder Bay was blocked off by the community for a traditional gathering last Thursday. On Monday, officials with the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines met with both sides to assist, and on Tuesday morning, Chief Wilfred King was joined by mine officials after coming to an understanding.
We felt that there were impacts that were to our community that should have been addressed through some sort of formalized process. We managed to sign a letter of intent today, and the mine has met all of our demands.
King was unable to provide details of what those demands were, but was able to say that the new agreement is much more than what the First Nation had before. Officials with North American Palladium were unable to provide an on-camera interview following the signing. However, during the ceremony, CEO Jim Gallagher told the small crowd gathered, "We should have been able to reach this kind of an agreement without this kind of process." And he went on to say, "We are further ahead now because of it." In addition to King and council, 50 members of the Gull Bay Band took part in the gathering over the course of its duration, which King says was an asset to help guide him.
The strength of the people is so important. As leaders, we are powerless without the people, and it's the people that give us the strength and the courage to do these sorts of things.
With the agreement signed and the barricades taken down, operations can now resume normally here at Lac des Îles mine. However, behind the scenes, things are just getting started, as all parties now have 2 months to complete a draft proposal, which King hopes will be implemented as soon as possible. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Murder charges were laid by the OPP in connection to a death of a teenage girl on the Big Grassy River First Nation near Fort Frances. 24-year-old Daryl Tuesday was arrested on June 4th and charged with first-degree murder for the death of 15-year-old Autumn Andy, after her body was located behind an outdoor skating rink on the Big Grassy Reserve. The OPP had initially requested the public's help by posting a photo of the Big Grassy River man a week prior. At the same time, the Treaty 3 police had enlisted the OPP in the search for Andy after she had been reported missing. After an incident occurring early in June 2018, June saw OPP in Kenora add additional charges against a 26-year-old male in relation to a sudden death in that community. On February 26th, a 77-year-old female was found dead in a residence on Railway Street. Now, initially, the male was charged with assault causing bodily harm, but on June 19th, a second-degree murder charge was added. The growth of mining in the area was on display as a monumental agreement was made in June. Long Lake 58 First Nation and Greenstone Gold Mines entered into a partnership with each other to further develop a potential economic driver in the Greenstone area. Adam Riley has more.
It feels we had accomplished something that we wanted to do for so long.
It's an amazing step. I think we are very proud to have this agreement.
With a few strokes of a pen, the economic future of Long Lake 58 and Greenstone is now looking much brighter. The community located west of Long Lac has agreed to support efforts by Greenstone Gold Mines to develop its hard rock project near Geraldton. Chief Veronica Wabu says when the lake levels were altered and when Highway 11 was built through their territory, the community had no say in the matter. But this time things are different, as the agreement was voted upon by the membership of the First Nation.
Our goal was to have resources within our territory, and that's what it is. This is the first time we ever had something like that, and I'm proud of my people for voting yes. And it means a lot to the future of our children.
Wabu says much of the community is on some form of government assistance, but part of the agreement gives the community options towards economic development, as well provides assistance from a mental health and substance abuse perspective by offering members the ability to seek help and employment opportunities nearby. Hard Rock General Manager Eric Lamontagne says talks were ongoing for years, but only within the last few months were the finer details discussed.
2 years ago, we done some negotiation and progress, but none. I think that the trigger happens in January, February this year when we we agree for the principle of the agreement, and from there, after that, we meeting more often to finalize the agreement together.
La Montagne calls the agreement a milestone in the process of the creation of the mine and says it was imperative to have the agreement in place with the First Nation as the mine will be located within their traditional territory. Aside from local and regional infrastructure such as Highway 11, which needs to be moved, an environmental assessment being reviewed by the government, and financing for this billion-dollar project still being sought after, there's much to do before a mine can be built. But for now, the company is content as they have something more valuable than government approval or cash: a partner. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The month of July started with a shocking announcement from Greyhound as the transportation giant announced it would be ending its service across the Northwest. That story and more coming up after the break. "2018 saw a big change in the way many in the region commute between communities. On July 9th, Greyhound Canada announced it would be shutting down much of its fleet in Western Canada, including its operation here in the Northwest. The announcement left many community leaders in shock as to how members of their communities will be able to travel without a vehicle of their own. Adam Riley reports.
This thoroughly cripples our region.
It's been less than a week, but the news that Greyhound Canada will be closing its operations in the Northwest has begun to sink in. It's left municipal leaders wondering what the future of regional transportation will look like. Scarborough Mayor Mark Figliamini says there is a Greyhound stop in his community, and the absence of buses will have a huge impact on the region, especially for those without personal transportation in need of medical care.
You talk about non-urgent transportation and just travel between Scarborough and Thunder Bay, even, say, for example, or Scarborough and Sault Ste. Marie, or if you're taking a longer trip. I think it's always been there. It's one of those things that will leave a big hole in your community.
Terrace Bay Mayor Jody Davis says this is a sign of the changing times and will leave many in a bind.
Especially northern rural communities have no method of transportation out of the communities other than by private vehicles. So there's no rail transportation or highway transportation, and the nearest airport is in Thunder Bay. So it's an inconvenience for people.
Kenora Mayor Dave Canfield echoes Figliamini's comments and calls the announcement very sad news. In a statement, he says the bus line was an important service for residents needing to travel to Thunder Bay or Winnipeg for medical appointments. Canfield says the previous government did not act on a Northern Ontario Municipal Association proposal for regional buses adding now would be a good time for the new government to give us a reliable ground transportation system like the rest of the province enjoys. NOMA President Wendy Landry says she was shocked by the announcement and vows to continue to work with other levels of government for a transportation solution.
When we talk about subsidies and we talk about the majority of Ontario being subsidized with transportation such as Metrolinx and Ontario Northland, such as we in the Northwest don't get anything like that. So we're going to continue and we're going to step up our advocacy when we meet with ministers at AMO in August.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Back in March, the federal government announced it would be spending $1.6 billion in the Northwest to bring power to 16 remote First Nations. Pikangikum was slated to be the first to be electrified. Once again, here's Adam Riley with an August progress report on the construction efforts of the project.
Just over 30 kilometers of power line installation is left before Pikangikum First Nation will be connected to the provincial grid. The 117-kilometer-long transmission line from Red Lake is costing $60 million and is funded through the federal government. It's the first step in a $1.6 billion project to connect 16 remote First Nations, which have been isolated for much of their existence. Watiniap Power CEO Margaret Kiniquinash says once complete, the region will begin to flourish and be open to new opportunities.
The vision was created on two parts. One, the driver is the need because of the existing situation with the diesel generators, and but also the bigger vision is how are we going to be part of any major development and infrastructure that happens in our territory.
Kiniquinash says Pikangikum will then become a start point for further development of the 1,800-kilometer project, linking several other First Nations, including Deer Lake, Poplar Hill, and McDowell Lake. As well, Pickle Lake will also be another start point for another section of the project. In addition to the power lines connecting communities, there's also another added benefit. These maintenance roads, which will run alongside the power lines, providing a physical land access point for many of those remote communities. Kenora MP Bob Nault says the size of the investment is something that hasn't been seen in the region in his 30-plus years in politics.
This is a very important piece of infrastructure. Will change the North forever and change those communities forever. So it's a good start to the work we need to do in the North. I mean, we're still the ring of fire. There's still the work to do to build an economy, and there's still a lot of infrastructure like roads and bridges up north. But we're making great progress.
The project is also having an economic benefit right now, as residents from the soon-to-be powered-up communities are receiving the education and skills needed to construct and maintain the line. Last month, 7 students graduated their training courses ready to be deployed to the line construction site. However, Kiniquinash says those aren't the only opportunities.
Our team continues to go to each community to recruit and to work with the building the power line, and also with the subcontractors, say the archaeologists, the people that are going to go on the land to look at from an environmental perspective. There's jobs that are coming up that will help create that capacity within each community.
The power line to Pikangikum is expected to be completed by November. The 2 larger phases of the project are expected to be completed by 2023. Adam Riley, TBT News.
August also saw another death in the Marathon area. OPP initially charged 45-year-old Sheldon Finlayson with aggravated assault in the death of a man, but upon further investigation, the charges were upgraded to manslaughter. 20-year-old Lee Quitlam Joy was found unconscious at a residence on Stevens Avenue in Marathon in July 31st. He was airlifted to Thunder Bay Regional Hospital, but he passed away late on August 1st. Finlayson was arrested soon after that incident.
Currently, Sheldon Finlayson has been charged with aggravated assault. Now, the OPP does not withdraw a charge. The court will have to do that if that happens. As it is right now, we can't speculate whether or not another charge will be laid. At this time, he's been charged with aggravated assault, and that's how we proceed. The post-mortem will be conducted on Saturday, and after that, we'll know where we are. The circumstances of the death are currently under investigation, and that's really all we can say.
March wasn't the only month where big bucks flowed into the infrastructure projects here in the Northwest. In August, the federal government announced a $7 million investment towards bringing broadband internet access to 6 communities in the region's far north. The announcement was made in Sioux Lookout, where the network will begin construction. Adam Riley has details.
For economic development, this is going to be a game changer for us.
$7.3 million. That is the amount the federal government will be investing to connect 6 remote First Nations. Fort Severn, North Spirit Lake, Poplar Hill, McDowell Lake, Deer Lake, and Keewaywin, along with 58 institutions in the far north. It's an investment which Fort Severn Chief Paul Burke says will open his community up to easier medical care access and education opportunities.
Another project we're going to bring in alongside our internet high school is access to college programs, college courses. This is something that we've talked with Confederation College, why stop at high school?
The announcement was made by Kenora MP Bob Nault and David Lametti, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. He says it's absolutely critical to connect remote northern communities to the internet, as it will help eliminate the isolation and complications of living in the far north.
We can always do more, but every single step that we take is a step in the right direction, and it really is critical to getting people online and again allowing them to really be part of the way the economy and the way society operates now.
Lametti says the funding will be coming through the government's $500 million Connect to Innovate program. The network infrastructure will be handled by KNet, a First Nations-owned internet and cell service provider operated through Kiiwetinoong Okimakanak Tribal Council. CEO Jordy Kakapitam says you cannot do anything without the internet, even more so in the north, and this announcement will bring many economic opportunities to the region.
So this is a great announcement. It's good for the communities. It's good for entrepreneurs that are doing something in their own community to advance, or it is a good news. It's very positive.
Kakapitam says he is unsure of when the project will begin or when residents will be able to go online, but he's hopeful it will be soon. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Well, that puts a wrap of some of the newsmakers during the summer of 2018. Be sure to tune in to episode 3 of Northwest Newsweek, a year in review, where we will recap the final 4 months of 2018.